Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Robin Craig Live here on the Mingle Media Television Network. I'm Robin Craig, broadcasting from Houston, Texas, my hometown. And guess what? We finally got some rain. This drought has been going on forever and ever. And I told everybody, please pray for rain. We have had so many terrible forest fires, and we've just lost thousands and thousands of acres of just beautiful greenery and tall trees. So we were praying for rain, but you know how we humans are? We think we want something, and then we get it, and then it wasn't the right time. Well, that's the way the rain turned out for me. I worked on a shoot last week for a major cosmetic company, and we were supposed to shoot exterior shots out by the pool on Saturday. And someone said, it's getting darker and darker outside. And I said, oh, it's no big deal. We've been in this drought forever. It's not a problem. And next thing you know, somebody says, it's raining. And I heard myself say, let me see. And it wasn't because I didn't believe the other person. It's just been so long since I've seen real rain. I wanted to see it. And I was marveling, going, look at how it's going sideways. And it's just got this wonderful rhythmic pattern. And oh my gosh, that's the sound of thunder. It was just like a first time experience in a way. So I was grateful. My grass in my yard was so happy. My yard guys are not going to be happy because the grass is growing a lot, but we're thrilled to have rain. So thank you if you are one of the people who prayed for rain. Now tonight, I am so excited. We're talking about healing after loss, and my special guest is Dr. Gloria Horsley, and she has got so much information. She's got a gigantic resume, but she is a psychotherapist. She is the president of Open for Hope Foundation. She has also written a book co-authored with her daughter, Dr. Heidi Horsley. And look, here it is right now. I've got a copy of it. This is what I'm going to be giving away. And it's a wonderful, wonderful big book. Look how thick it is. It's a wonderful, great, great book. So stay tuned for an opportunity to win the book. And I also will be talking to her in a moment, but I wanted to also mention Dr. Sean Jackson here in the Houston area. He's located off of 290 at the Jones Road area. His company is Health Source Chiropractic and Rehab, and he does everything from spinal manipulation to massage therapy to cupping to shoe inserts to a program for weight loss, another program for cellulite removal. He's fabulous. So if you're anywhere in the greater Houston area, you can reach him at 713-896-1443. Now, I have another update for you. Oh, there's Sandy. Hey, Sandy, we're so glad you could join us. I'm excited to announce tonight that I am teaming up with Stanley Bronstein. He is an attorney, a CPA, and an author of 7 books, and we are doing a retreat at Miraval Spa. It's a luxurious, very classy, top-notch resort and spa in Tucson, Arizona. It's Oprah's favorite spa. Need I say any more? So you can find out about it by going to my website, robincraigdirect.com. There is a banner at the top of each page. If you click on that, that will take you over to Stanley's site where you can get all of the information. But Stanley is a very interesting guy. He walked for 5 hours a day in all 50 states. Can you imagine that? He met wonderful people, and his experiences are unbelievable. So he's written a book about that, and I'm going to have him on the show in a couple of weeks, so we'll talk more about that. But if you guys have any interest in pampering yourself and catching up with us, we'll be having a lot of speaking engagements. We'll be doing a lot of walks in the desert. It's so beautiful out there. Just go to my website, robincraigdirect.com, and we'll get you more information on that. And now it's time for the critter update. I am delighted that it's been extremely quiet. The only critter I've seen is a ton of birds, because when I water my yard, I have certain areas where the water stands, and I've been like that show Alfred Hitchcock once did called The Birds. They're like coming from far and near, but it's so cute to watch them splashing, and they play in my sprinkler when I have the sprinkler system on. It's been really great. And then I took an outside shower, and another one of those tiny frogs, I mean, it's like half an inch long, little bitty. he took a shower with me, and it was so cute because he stood there without moving, and I think he thought it was raining, but it was the shower. But it was cute. So that's it for the update. Now, let's get Dr. Gloria Horsley on the phone because she's got so much information. I don't want to waste another moment. Hello, Gloria. Are you there?
Hey, Robin. Yep, I'm right here in San Francisco, California.
I know. I'm so glad you could join us while you're traveling. It's exciting to have you here, and it was exciting to meet you in San Diego last month. You've got a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, that Widows Conference was pretty amazing. Michelle Fernandez does a tremendous job, doesn't she?
She actually does. It's just hard to think that you can get women from 43 states in America, 4 provinces in Canada, the Great Britain, and Africa all under the same roof. But we were there and we had a great, great time.
Yeah, what a wonderful group of women. They're just amazing. And Michelle is so strong in her keynote, and she's just such a vibrant person and really draws people in to the fact that you can overcome problems and terrible issues in your life and losing the love of your life, and you can go on to do great things.
I know it. It's so difficult. And you have lost a son. You are still married. It was amazing to hear you've been married for 51 years.
Yeah, can you believe it?
I mean, that is so rare, but it is so beautiful. So I have to ask you, how did it feel to be right in the big middle of a whole bunch of widows?
It was really interesting, Robin, because as you know, in 1983, my son Scott, who was 17, and his 17-year-old cousin were killed in an automobile accident. They actually hit a wall, and the car blew up, and they burned to death. So, I'm very familiar with the tragedy and the loss of someone you love very dearly in your family. And I thought, well, Michelle invited me to go to the Widows Conference, because I have my foundation, Open to Hope, where we deal with all kinds of loss, because our mission is helping people find hope after loss. And so I had Michelle on my radio show, and I just really liked her. And as I said, we are open to dealing with all kinds of loss. We have a lot of widows that write for us and widowers. So, and I've interviewed a lot, so I was familiar, but I was a little apprehensive about going to the conference because I thought, like I'm a fish out of water, I'm not a widow, and knock on wood, and I've had a very happy marriage for 51 years, very luckily. But I felt like, with grief and loss, I have something to share with them, some of the lessons I've learned over 26 years, because I'm, a long ways out of that severe pain that you feel early on. And when I got there, I just found a group of wonderful people, men, more women, but some men there who welcomed me in, and I just heard a lot of the same things that I went through, and a lot of the same issues that I've had. And I did a workshop on Will I Ever Be Happy Again there, and gave people a happiness survey and that kind of thing. And I just found a welcome and an understanding, and we're all going through these different kinds of losses, but we have a lot of the same issues.
We really do. And I know that as we talked earlier, widows have some different problems, but we all have a lot of the same issues across the board when we lose someone we love. And it's something that if you haven't gone through it, you will go through it. The only way to not go through it is to never care about someone. And that's impossible. How can you not care about people?
Absolutely.
Well,
open your heart and take people in, and some people die before you do, and it's life, and we will all face the same end at some point. So as you say, you can't avoid it if you open your heart, and grief is the price you pay for love.
Absolutely. And I just held up your book. I'm going to hold it up again. We're going to give away Gloria's first book. They have plans to write several. The first one is Open to Hope. And I absolutely love that because everything you've done so far, your internet radio show, your first book, and your foundation have the same name. So that really makes it easy for all of us to remember.
Yeah, and I want to tell you why we named the website, why we named the book, why everything that we do is called Open to Hope. Because I know there are people out there who are really feeling hopeless, and we're not asking them, we're not saying, come on, get it together, you can do it, if you've just recently had a loss. We're saying, if you have recently had a loss, just entertain the
that's the most beautiful thing, because it takes a little while to just try to grasp what has happened. And when you lose someone, there's so much business that takes place, at least there is in today's world. And you've got so many things that are coming at you. You have a hard time absorbing the loss and figuring out which way do you go first. So it's wonderful to have a group where you can say, lean on us until you get to the point where you can lean on yourself. That's so beautiful.
Yeah, and certainly that's what you're doing here too. You know, the internet's amazing because you can come on your show and say, "Here I am."
Yes.
And you know, when I first lost Scott, and I don't know about you losing your husband, but when I first lost Scott, and people would come to me and say, "I lost a child." That's all they had to say, because I looked at them early on in those first days and said, "Wow, maybe I can make it. Maybe I will survive this," because you really don't feel like you will.
Yes, you really don't. And a common phrase that I hear a lot is, I feel like I'm going crazy. I think that's across the board, don't you?
Absolutely. That's a totally normal feeling. In fact, I had somebody email me the other day and say, my friends are all telling me that it was actually someone whose husband that died recently, and said, my friends are all telling me now it's been a year. It's been a year for her, which I call recently.
Yes.
And she said, my friends are telling me that I cry too much because I go to work all day, and she's a master teacher, and she teaches other teachers out of the classroom on how to handle their classrooms. And she said, I go to work and I'm fine. And I said, well, how are you at work? And she said, I'm fine all day. And then I come home and cry. And I said, you got a lot to cry about. You know, so what? I mean, as one of my friends said, nobody ever died of dehydration from crying. So, you know, it's okay. And she said, I said, you're normal. You know, you've got normal grief. You're functioning, you're getting up, you're going, and you're okay. And she said, well, I felt like I was going crazy. And I said, no, it's a normal grief. And she said, thank you so much. It is such a relief to hear that. And I just said, well, call me anytime, you know, you want to talk about that, because it is what it is until you're ready to move on. If you're functioning 3/4 of your day, what more?
I know people often say after 6 months, and certainly at the 1 year mark, that you just need to move forward. And I always say, honey, if anybody's getting up out of bed and combing their hair in the morning and making food and doing anything at all, yeah, that is moving forward. We are moving forward.
Absolutely.
But we,
I'll tell you, there's a real paradox and people say to me in the first year, you know, it was tough, but the second year it feels harder.
yeah.
And I always say there's a real paradox to that. The reason the second year is so hard is because you're getting better. So you look like you're getting worse. You're feeling more crazy because you think you should be better. And the reason is because you can take it all in. I mean, you're really, I call it the freeze right after your loss. You're frozen. You start thawing out, and you start feeling again, and it hurts. And you say, wow, I'm supposed to have this progression, this linear progression. From day one, I just keep getting better. And you know what? You are getting better, but it hurts worse.
Wow. Well, I tell you, the grief process is something that we can't really understand or explain until we're in it. And once we're in it, the beautiful part is the instant camaraderie that we have among one another when we can share how we feel and we know that we're speaking to someone who gets it. Why is that so comforting for us to speak to people who really get it?
Well, I think it's two things. When you're around people, and this is what I love about groups and going to widows things and compassionate friends and all these things, is because when you are around people who've had the same loss, you will see people who are early grievers, and you'll say, wow, I've come from there. But you will also be with late grievers, and you will say that it's been a long time, like me, and you'll say, wow, since
Yes, and I'm looking at the chat room, and people are just making lots of comments. And some people are saying that they were in shock the first year, and then the second year they just cried and cried and cried. Is that considered normal?
Absolutely. It's again what I say. The first year you are, I call it frozen, and then when you start thawing out, you start crying. The tears come with thaw. So I would say to all you who are in that second year, yeah, it is tough, but remember what I said. It's a paradox. You think you're getting worse, but you're really getting better.
Yes. Now, one thing that I hear, I'm so sorry, first of all, that you lost your son, and that's so tragic for him to be 17 and in a car accident with his cousin, and both boys were killed. That's an awful lot for a family to have to handle. When it happened to you, was there discord among the family members? Because this seems to happen quite a bit when people should be joining forces and being calm and handling things well. Sometimes everything just goes to pieces. What was your experience?
Absolutely, everything went to pieces. What can I say? I wish I could say it didn't. But you know, everybody wants to do it differently. I wanted to have a funeral in Rochester, New York, where we were living at the time, and then my cousin, whose son was killed too, we were very close. We're like sisters. So we wanted to take the boys back to our hometown in Utah, a little tiny town called Brigham City. We wanted to take the boys there and have a joint funeral there. Well, my husband didn't particularly want to do that, and he wasn't happy about it. But he felt like one funeral was enough, and we didn't need to take it on the road, you know. And we did have some humor is important. We did have a few laughs around that, you know. I mean, that I was insistent, and he's like, you know, what do you think, this isn't roadshow? And you know, I mean, we had to find something in it, and then other family members buffered it, but he let me have my way on that, and I'm sure I let him have his way on some things. But one of the problems when you've had a loss is that when you're up, some people are down, or when you're down, they're up, and you know, it's hard. It's hard on family members, and also you've got in-laws if you've lost a spouse, and you've got the mother who lost her son, and you know, you lost your husband, and it's difficult because you've got people grieving losses in a different way. You have a sister grieving the loss of her brother, and Heidi, my daughter, will tell you that it's very different for a sibling than it is for a parent or for a spouse. You know, the siblings have different issues. They were supposed to, you know, have this person. The sibling relationship is the longest relationship we ever have in our lives. So it is a different, a whole different situation depending on who you are, and it's quite the mix. It's quite a stew.
Yes, and you said that when you started doing your radio program, you were going to do it for 13 weeks, and someone said, "You are my lifeline, please don't quit." And I relate to that because I've been told that about my show, and that's a beautiful gift. And at the same time, it's a little bit of pressure too because it's really hard to do something on a regular basis, as you well know. But what I think was so neat about it is that your daughter Heidi was watching the show and one day said, "You know, I noticed you're not doing anything about sibling loss." And then you invited her to come into the radio show, and you guys have now, what, 350 shows archived?
Yep, we have 350 shows archived on our site, and we put a new show on every Thursday.
I think
So
that's
it's been quite an experience doing that with her. She had to think about it. She didn't just say yes. So she waited for a couple of weeks to finally, and her husband was the one that finally said, "Come on, go do it."
so. Do things work smoothly between you all when you're doing the show together, or is it? Does somebody feel like I need to be the boss of the other?
Well, I kind of, you know, she does other things. She's the executive director of our foundation, and I'm in charge of the radio show. So I set up the guests and that kind of thing, and I you know, begin the show in. But she's very much a part of it, and I love it when she says, "Mom, that's not the way I see it."
I think that's so wonderful. She's just beautiful. I saw her picture, and it's wonderful what you guys are doing. I just put up your website, opentohope.com, and for anybody who would like to listen to the archive shows, just go to the website. They're all on there, and like she said, every Thursday there's a new one. I think that's fabulous. I love that.
And they
Okay.
can, you know, download them on iTunes and that kind of thing too.
Okay, excellent. Now, one thing that we wanted to talk about, there's so much in the book. I'm holding it up again. Open to Hope. It's a great, big, beautiful book. And you see, I'm showing the thickness. It's a real book. And you talk about so much in there, and you've got contributing writers, and they share their stories from losing a child, a sibling, a son, a daughter, a spouse. And there's so much wonderful information. I'm loving it. But one thing I wanted us to talk about are the 4 R's. The first one is restitution. Talk about
Mhm.
that for us.
Yeah, the 4 R's are an idea I have about the grieving process. And the first phase we have in the grieving process is restitution. We want that person back. We want them in our life. We can't believe they've left. That's when you go to sleep and you wake up and think it was just a nightmare. It couldn't really have happened.
Yes.
All the things we tell ourselves, the yearning and searching for them, the smells, all the things that there are. I mean, it feels totally unfair. We want this person back in our lives.
Yes, and we're not going to get them, but we have a hard time accepting that.
You know what? Why would we? When we were little kids, we knew if we threw a tantrum, we could get what we wanted. We've been told all our lives we can have whatever we want if we want it badly enough.
That is so true, but we can throw all the temper tantrums we want, and we're never going to get our loved ones back. I had shared with you a story, which I would share with the viewers. When I was first widowed, I was isolated. I wasn't on the social media. I live in a house with an 8-foot brick fence. There was nobody that came running. The majority of my family is gone, and I was just on my own. And at one point, I spoke to one of the widows from church. She's a little bit older, and she is twice widowed. And the first thing she said to me is, Robin, you must accept what has happened. Well, before she finished the last word, I could tell where she was going. In my mind, I was going, no, I don't. I don't have to accept it. I'm not going to accept it. And then after I hung up the phone, I thought, she's right. I have to accept it. And when I thought about it later, I thought, isn't that weird that I fought the acceptance? But then after I accepted it, I realized I went to a deeper level of grief. And is that our big problem in not accepting? Because as long as we don't accept it, we don't go to the bottom of the barrel when it comes to grief.
Well, how long have you been widowed by then?
Just 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks.
That's pretty early. That's quite a comment from her. Pretty early. Um, the first thing you want to do is you want it back. But the second thing is uh, reconciliation. You want to settle the books. You want to get it straight. You want to know why it happened, um, how they died, why you weren't there, whether you should have given them more, care or medicine, or were you driving the car, or all the things. Were they hit by a drunk driver, and are you involved in a lawsuit? I will tell you, it is so hard for families where the spouse has been killed in an automobile accident, or Heidi and I worked a lot with the 9/11 firemen families. It was very difficult for those widows because their spouses were murdered, basically, and to try to deal with the idea of a murder and whether people are going to ever come to trial, who planned this, all those things keep you in a very tough spot, which is reconciliation,
Yes.
which is I want to reconcile the books. I want to figure out how. And it sounds like you didn't stay in that space too long, but
Yes.
some people are caught in that space for a very long time, and if they're involved in lawsuits, or if say somebody drove a car, or if they're in court or whatever, a lot of times the spouse really can't get on with it until after settlements occur.
Yes, and I know. Do you think sometimes? I mean, I know a lot of lawsuits are merited. And I know a lot of people who have had to file wrongful death suits and they've prevailed. I know other people who have filed lawsuits and they didn't prevail. Do you think that some people file the lawsuits because they need a place for the anger or the blame to go?
Or they're not ready to move on to the next phase, which is reality, and
Yes.
saying it is what it is, but they're not ready to move on. I was saying to you, we were talking earlier, I think one of the things that has to happen is that you have to get bored with your own story. You have to work it out. And some people never want to get bored of it. They want to hold that anger, they want to hold blame and all that. But I would say to you, if you're listening to this show, my guess is you're ready to move on in your life, and one of the ways to do
Yeah.
And as long as you keep the story that they shouldn't be because somebody made a mistake, you are caught in a very tough place of trying to reconcile. So, you need to think about getting bored with your own story. I mean, isn't it enough if other people are tired of hearing it, if you're tired of hearing it? But in order to get to that place, Robin, for very many people, they need to find safe people that they can tell that story to until it does bore them. As long as they hold it in, that story into their own hearts, particularly if it's self-blame. If you're holding self-blame in your heart, you need to do some things. Maybe write a letter to your loved one and read it out loud to somebody else, or there's another technique of getting a chair and sitting it across from you and having your spouse that died in that chair and talking to them about how you feel, and then take your little body over and put it in the empty chair and reply from your spouse. How would they say to you?
Wow.
There would be forgiveness.
Wow.
And so you need to think about some of those kinds of things that you can do.
That is truly amazing. And how is this helpful when it's you in a room by yourself? How is that actually helping to speak to the deceased person and then to go sit in that chair and have them speak back to you?
It's an amazing thing. It can be a very amazing thing. Now, I wouldn't say you may want to do this. If you're really depressed, you might want to really find a friend that you can say, would you try this out with me? And you can ask them what they would say or whatever, or you can write a letter and maybe just have them sit there while you do the process if it's difficult for you to be alone. But writing a letter to your spouse and then having your spouse answer it and having a friend kind of mediate this, or you can have a minister or a family member. Therapists do this all the time, but it's very good therapeutic. Writing in any sense can be an amazing thing to do. But the reason you're doing it is to deal with that story that you have had in your heart that you were somehow to blame or that you could have done something about it. Because, there's three kinds of business, Robin. There's your business, there's my business, and there's God's business. And some of the stuff about when this person dies, my son Scott was killed in an accident. It was years ago. Whose business is it? Am I mad at his cousin for driving the car? No, I'm not. It's not my business. It's God's business. I don't know why he died. It's not my story anymore.
Yes, so basically it sounds like we have to control our minds and that we have to be able to work through things by finding acceptance. And if we have anger and we have unresolved issues, to do some role playing to help us get to the place where we can heal and reshape our lives.
And also you can just read other people's stories. We've got wonderful stories in the book, and Fred Luskin is an A1 man on forgiveness, and he has an article on there. We'll give you the steps of how to forgive. And he's worked with the people in Northern Ireland to forgive, the families where kids were killed up in Northern Ireland. They actually brought a group of women to Stanford University, and Fred worked with them on forgiveness. So you could look at the book and read about forgiveness, and Michelle's got a great piece, Neff Hernandez, in the book. I mean, there are just a number of wonderful things in there to help you get to that next phase, which is acceptance. Reality, we've been through the, idea that you want to reconcile the books, and now you want to move into reality. And the next R that you can read about in the book and chapter that I wrote is reunion. And that is, I love reunion because reunion is not reunion with the person, it's reunion with yourself and the wonderful person you are and the things that you've learned from this experience. They're hard-won lessons, but you're an amazing person, and you need to find that again, and you can.
It's so great. I'm loving what they're talking about in the chat room. One of the gals said she recorded her husband's voice. Another gal said she found love letters stuffed in books, and she found love notes on the bottom of furniture he built. Isn't that so beautiful?
Oh, that's wonderful. I love those signs and connections and those continuing bonds.
I do
They're
too.
so great.
I do too. Sandy's saying that she found old Valentine cards, and I think we all have. And it's kind of bittersweet. You're so grateful to see anything in your loved one's handwriting. It's so precious to see that handwriting that's familiar. But on the other hand, it makes you cry because you know there won't be any more of them.
But you've got those, and we call those continuing bonds. And those stories and all the remembers and all the things that you have are the continuing bonds that you'll always have with that person.
I
You
love
know,
that.
I don't know if you just saw Anderson Cooper, I guess, is doing something tonight about his brother's suicide. And he and Gloria Vanderbilt, his mother, are saying that they didn't feel closure when his brother died. And I, emailed them off and said, that's because closure's for bank accounts, not love accounts. So
Oh.
we keep those continuing bonds.
Wow, that is so great. I love that. And really love is the one thing that transcends this life. And we have to accept
Absolutely.
that. If we love deeply, we are going to grieve deeply. It's just so hard and it's so foreign to us. So I'm loving the dialogue that we're getting here with some ways to help. One thing I wanted to touch on, you were talking about reunion, which is the fourth R. I read that Professor Richard Tedeschi had identified 5 areas of personal growth after loss. The first one is I am stronger than I thought. And boy, am I a testimony to that. I say that all the time. I am so strong. I'm trying not to get like haughty or proud, but I just don't think there's too much that I can't deal with. And what a beautiful place to be, because this has all been since becoming a widow. Did you
Yeah,
find that through your loss was with your son? Did you find that you were stronger than you thought as well?
absolutely. And let me say that Professor Tedeschi and Professor Calhoun, who did this study, that people can go on the internet and Google their names and read it. They interviewed thousands of people to get these, they call them post-traumatic growth areas. And I love that first one. I am stronger than I thought I was. And boy, am I. One of the things I think you do over time is you lose fear of
Yes.
getting out and doing things.
Yes.
It's hard at
Yes.
first, but you're amazed at what you can do.
Yes. I was telling somebody that I've reached a point where when something happens, I no longer think, oh my gosh, who can I call? I think, what do I need to do and what can I do? And that's like a huge breakthrough for me personally.
Hmm. And
Yeah.
also, what can I give up? What don't I have to do anymore?
Yes. I know cooking for me. I still remember how, but cooking just went out the window. It is funny at the things you take on and the things that you give up. Now, one of the other things he talked about regarding this post-traumatic growth is recognition that there may be new possibilities or opportunities. And I think that's huge because there are tons of possibilities. We just have to look for them, because when you're in a relationship and you settle into it, you kind of stop looking a lot of times for additional things you can do. You sort of figure out what works and you stay with it. But after you've suffered a loss, your world is so different, and you are able to look and see there are tons of possibilities, and you have a lot of options to where you can change and grow. I love that.
Well, that's what's so much fun about groups, and particularly, like Camp Widow or something. Michelle makes that so much fun. And one of the things about it is that you hear what other people are doing. I mean, what's Carol's last name? The Stiletto?
Carol Brody
Widows Wear
Fleet.
Stilettos?
Carol Brody
Carol,
Fleet.
yeah, she is amazing. I mean, she just makes you laugh and realize there's things you can do.
Yes. And it's wonderful because so many of us are doing things to where I never envisioned myself doing what I'm doing now, but it's a wonderful byproduct of the struggles that I've gone through. And I think when you go through struggles and you realize how fragile and how precious life is, it makes you want to utilize what life you have left in a big bang kind of way.
Absolutely. Isn't that another one of their post-traumatic stress is
Yes, that was another one of the things that was talked about, which is just a greater appreciation of life and
mm-hmm.
the value of it and how precious it is. And the other thing, which I've experienced as well, is just having deeper relationships with people.
Right. With certain people, and then the shallow, hollow people, you're just not with them anymore. I mean,
Yes.
it's just level.
Yes, and I love that. But you know what's funny? I think it's sad that you don't realize that your relationships are not that deep until you've had a loss and then you have deeper relationships. And then you're like, oh my gosh.
Right. What have I been talking about all these years? What am I doing? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of amazing.
And it's a wonderful time to redirect your life. There are so many people that are not happy with their jobs or their living situation, just all kinds of things. And it seems like when you suffer a deep loss, it allows you, for whatever reason, to evaluate where you are and to feel more comfortable in making the changes. Like you have some sort of innate sense after a deep loss that says, I need to make a change and I'm going to do it no matter what anyone else says.
Yep, absolutely. But I'll have to say, I always have to stop and say to myself that just a little disclaimer out there for you people who are very newly bereaved, you may not be ready to do all this yet. We still know that getting out of bed is a major thing. And coming on and listening to the show today, good for you. You are stepping out.
Yes. Yes, it's so beautiful and it feels so good to do that, but especially when you lose a spouse, moving into another realm is so uncomfortable. Everybody, including me, says I feel like half of a person because when you have a couple, you learn what each of you is good at and you split up your job duties. And I used to tell my husband all the time that together we make one really great, capable person. So with his not being around, I just felt like half of a person. And so many women, especially widows, I hear them say that all the time. I hear widowers say that as well. What would you say to address that?
Yeah,
Oh, I lost you for a minute. Are you still there?
yeah, I'm back. I
Okay.
mean, I guess you lost me. I didn't lose you.
Okay. Okay. Yes, what do you say to people who say, I feel like half a person, but yet you have to learn how to be a whole person again?
Well, I think that the reality is you've never been half a person. And I do think you have to realize that you, maybe part of you is kind of enjoying or a little asleep or whatever, but you're all.
Yes, that's really beautiful. That's excellent to just realize that you've never been half a person. You were always a whole person. You just blended well with someone else.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. You blended well, and now you are, back to this person that you were born. You were born by yourself, and you were great. And remember what a great baby you were. And you still are. You're still that adorable baby, that adorable person, and you are who you are, and it's great.
I love that. That is so wonderful. Well, we touched on how people often tell those who are grieving that you need to move forward. Is there an appropriate reaction that we can talk about? Because people seem to be at a loss. They don't want to cause any discord. They've got all they can take in their grief. And at the same time, it upsets them when people say that. What's a good way for us to respond when somebody says move forward?
Well, first of all, people who say things like that, it's no point in arguing with them. They've got it in their mind that you should be moving forward. But what's the point of putting your energy trying to set them straight? There's no point in it. They're not safe people. You can maybe try to set them straight once by saying, you know what, that may be okay for you, but it's not where I am.
Yeah, so it's okay just to speak up for yourself. Just I'm moving forward in the best way I possibly can. You just may not recognize it because I look terrible and I sleep longer.
Yeah. For some reason we're cutting out. Did you want me to finish my thought? If they persist, I would move on and find some new friends. There are great friends out there. If it's a family member, sometimes you have to limit contacts with family members for a while. I suggest to people holidays are coming up, and that's a tricky one for you. And if you don't want to spend Christmas Eve at somebody's house this year like you used.
Uh-oh, you're cutting out again, Gloria. I have no idea what's the issue. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Okay, yeah, you're back now.
Okay. So if you don't want to spend Christmas this year or Thanksgiving like you traditionally did, it's the time right now. I'm telling you, when you get off this show today, get in touch those people and tell them that you won't be spending it with you. Then they will be angry. They won't like it. But they're not going to.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe that we're cutting out. I know you're on a landline. Can you still hear me, Gloria? Okay, there you are. I don't know why we're starting to cut out for a little bit because I know that you're on a landline. But basically, it's okay for us to stand up for ourselves and not feel like we just have to crater to some of the things that people say that are really offensive. And you know what? I was just noticing too that we have, I think, Mikado in the chat room, and she is a widow of 3 weeks. Boy, that's really raw. First of all, I'm sorry for your loss, and I appreciate you watching Robin Craig Live. What's your best advice, Gloria, for brand new widows?
Take care of yourself. Drink water. Breathe. Walk around the block. Raise your arms up and down over your head.
Yes, and I say that too. I like to add, make every effort to get out in nature if you can, because somehow nature is healing, just the wind blowing and birds flying around and you hear insects, somehow that seems to ignite our senses. And even if you're crying when you're out there, I know for me, I felt better. If I was around water or anything outside, I just felt like I was healing, that somehow it was more comforting than how I felt when I was inside. And that's totally important. We talked about so many things today, but before I forget, you have so many people quoting people that we all know and love who are famous. And there was a great quote by Einstein. One of the gals who wrote in your book talked about the importance of looking toward the afterlife. I know that there are some who don't believe in the afterlife. I totally believe in the afterlife, but I have to tell you what Einstein said. He said the probability of life originating by accident is comparable to the probability of the unabridged dictionary resulting from an explosion in a print shop. How great is that? I absolutely love that. In other words, Einstein believes in the afterlife, and that's one thing that's comforting for those of us who have lost, is that we believe that we're going to see our loved ones again, and that's huge. Can you still hear me, Gloria? Can you still hear me? Oh no, how did I lose Gloria? Are you there? I have lost Gloria. This is a tragedy. She's still connected. Hello, Miss Gloria, are you there?
Yes, I just came back in. Do you want to call me back?
No, you're there now. Let's see if we can go with that. I was just quoting. Could you hear me?
I heard you quoting the Einstein, and I think that is really neat.
Yes, I am missing that so much. Do you think I should try to call you back, Gloria? Yeah, I'm going to hang up and just call you back. Let's try it again. I'm going to hang up. You know what? Should we try your cell phone? All right, I'm going to call you back on your cell phone. Okay, bye-bye. Okay, we only have a few more minutes, but we do not want to waste a moment of the opportunity to speak to Dr. Gloria Horsley. She is so great and a psychotherapist and just absolutely the neatest person. So I'm going to get her back on the phone. Okay, here we go. All right, you're still on Robin Craig Live, and if you guys have just tuned in, we're talking with Dr. Gloria Horsley, psychotherapist and the president of Open to Hope Foundation. Now, here's a question for you. There are so many people, and I don't know why, they just have difficulty supporting us in our grief. What's up with that, Gloria?
Well, they can't face their own grief, or they've had grief in the past that they haven't dealt with. If they deal with your grief, they got to deal with their own, and they're just not ready to go there. For some people, that's one group, and then there's the second group who've never had any loss in their life at all, and they don't get it. Period. I mean, they think that years. I mean, they just don't get it. I always say to people, if you want to work in the area of grief and loss, don't expect instant gratification because that's not what you're going to get, and that's not the way life is. We're not built that way. I mean, it would be a crazy thing if we were built as human beings to live with somebody for years or have somebody close to us or love somebody and all of a sudden they die and we just move on. I mean, what would that be like?
Yes.
It would be weird.
Yes, yes, and I think you hit on something that I have not really considered, that perhaps people are going to have to deal with their own grief if they deal with your grief. I never have really thought about that, but that's something that I will think about now when I think about people not being supportive. Now, one thing that I definitely want to address, because I'm on a lot of the social media sites, and there are a lot of people talking about issues with their in-laws, and I know you've written about in-laws. How can you address that? What can you share with us?
Well, yeah, I wrote a book called The In-Law Survival Manual years ago with John Wiley. They can still pick it up. The problem is it's not about grief and loss. It is about, dealing with your in-laws, period. But I'm going to do something about grief and loss because it is an important issue. The thing is, everybody's grieving so many different things. When your spouse dies, you're grieving the death of your spouse. Your in-laws are grieving the death of their son. Your sister-in-law is grieving the death of her brother. Everybody's grieving a different loss. It's really kind of a fascinating thing when you think about it. It's kind of a merry-go-round, and as a bereaved parent, I can tell you when you lose your spouse, a parent has lost their child, I don't care how old your child is, it really does something. I think there's some biological, connection there. Even if you didn't get along with them, sometimes not getting along with people even makes it stronger. And also, people think of mothers and fathers as a unit. You might think of your in-laws as a unit. They are not a unit. Your mother-in-law has one opinion. Your father-in-law has another. It may look like they have the same opinion exactly, but they don't, and they grieve differently. Men grieve very differently than women do. So here you've got these parents, your in-laws grieving differently. As I said, your sister-in-law, all these people. And then you've got your own family that's grieving for the loss of their son-in-law or daughter-in-law. So it's really, there's so many things going on. I mean, it's so many balls in there. It's pretty incredible.
It really is incredible, and we all just have to be forgiving, and we have to do the best we can and make the effort to communicate and just understand that we're all hurting in our own way, and it's just hard for everybody. I said a while ago that we had a new widow of 3 weeks in the chat room. We have a new widower whose wife died of cancer. What would you say to him? You were saying that men grieve differently. What would you say to our 3-week-old widower, and how is it that men grieve differently from women?
Well, men tend to be what we call instrumental. As one person said, women tend to grieve face to face, and men grieve shoulder to shoulder. They do not stand and talk about it oftentimes like the women like to do. They don't like to do that. They'd rather go out and play basketball or do, something. There was Abel Keough has been on our radio show, and we have a section, by the way, in our on our website in special topics called For Men Only. And I would suggest that this man go to our website, go to special topics, and hit on For Men Only and read articles by men who have suffered the loss. And one of them is Abel Keough. Abel, I love that his wife was actually pregnant, and she shot herself, and she and the baby both died. And Abel was a young husband, totally devastated. And he and his wife had been looking at an old house they were thinking about buying. And so he bought it. And his friends came in for 2 years and helped him fix it up.
Wow.
And that's what he did. That's how his friends helped him. So men tend to do stuff. Like Ann Hood, who wrote The Knitting Circles, New York Times bestselling author, was telling us that when her daughter died, her husband bricked up the whole yard.
Yes, yes, and I think that's why the social media sites are so hot right now. Every day it seems there's a new site for those who have lost a loved one, and there's a new site for widows and widowers. But it's because everybody says, I need a safe place to talk, and my family's not getting it. And sometimes they just say, I just need to vent. You just need to be able to say, this is what's happening, and it really sucks. And I think social media has been really helpful for a lot of people in that regard. I think that's so great.
Hmm. Well, one of the things, let me say that watch out that you don't get caught in is, and I don't know, take it personally or try to stay away from it. Two big things that happen in any kind of a loss with in-laws and families are connected with money and possessions. Who gets what? And it's
Yes,
unfortunately that we
yes,
get caught in that
yes,
and can't walk away from it.
yes,
Sometimes it can be a very tough situation, and
yes,
who received what on, you know, when my when different people die, sometimes things are left to other people, or people find out about wills and IRAs and that kind of thing, and it creates a lot of problems
yes,
that are never resolved. And what I suggest to people is, if you're starting to get in some kind of a bind like that, you need to get an intermediary. If you can find a pastor or somebody who can be between you and the people, so that you don't say things that you regret later on, or you have
yes.
somebody to advocate for you, a friend, a minister, somebody that can be an intermediary.
Yes, and it's hard to keep from saying things that you will regret later on when you're grieving and you're not really yourself and you're dealing with just so much. You just want to scream or just lie down on the floor and raise the white flag. But at the same time, it is important to try to keep things together. And if you can't talk for a period of time until you're better, well, then that's better than having a big knockdown drag out. But it just seems like a lot of people are, because it's hard to avoid when everybody is very emotional.
Absolutely. As I said, when you've got parents grieving for their child and you're grieving for your spouse, and one of the things that we saw with the 9/11 widows, which was kind of interesting and it wasn't unusual, is people arguing about whose grief was more. You know,
Yes.
the widow saying, "I lost my husband." What are you talking about? You just lost your dad. You know, I mean,
Yes.
literally, I lost my son, and you just lost your husband. And people were kind of trying to decide whose grief was more important.
Yes.
And we saw that fairly often early on. And, I can understand it because you're feeling so bereaved and don't feel like other people are realizing that, it's your grief. But it is
Yes.
your grief,
Yes.
and you can't know other people's grief. You can't know
Yes.
what it is for them. It's your own. And, it's important to honor your own grief and find safe people who can hear you.
And I think that we have to be careful to not make it seem like our grief is worse than someone else's. How do we know? We don't.
Exactly, we don't.
Yes, and
The worst thing that's ever happened to us.
I hear people debate sometimes it's worse to lose a spouse than it is to lose a child. And sometimes I talk about that to people who have had both experiences. And it's kind of apples and oranges. You can't compare the two. They're different.
Yeah, that's what everyone will say. They'll say it's different. They're different issues.
Yes. Yes.
With the spouse, gosh, the financial issues can be huge. And taking over, and like you say, you have a partnership. You've got to take over all those tasks.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
overwhelming. All the things plus the love, and then with a child, the future and that parenting responsibility is very heavy, and also oftentimes there's a lot of guilt around a child because you feel this shame that I don't think that you probably feel with a spouse. I don't know, you can tell me, but there's a shame when you lose a child because parents are supposed to take care of their children.
Yes, and I think that there can be with widows and widowers. I think maybe it depends on how they died. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes people do feel responsible. It's like I should have been there and I was supposed to be there and something happened and I wasn't there. And then I think you can just feel like you have some kind of fault in it, when we have to accept that everybody dies when they're supposed to die. And we have to live in reality, which I think is so poignant out of so many things that were wonderful in your book. And I know we're running out of time, but very quickly, this is another issue that people have said, I'm so tired of grieving. I am so sick of this, and I want to change something and make it better, but I don't know how. What would you say to those people?
Wow. Well, if you're really sick of it and you're really ready to make a change, I would suggest that you say this to yourself. And I would say, for me, for my son Scott, how do I know Scott should be dead because he is? And who would I be without the story that Scott, my son, should not be dead?
Yeah.
Who would I be with that story? I would be miserable. I have suffered.
Yes.
If I do not believe Scott should have died, I will suffer. But he did die, and I believe that's reality. And it's not my business anymore. As I said, there's your business, my business, and God's business. And I've turned that one over to God. I don't know why. And that was his life. His life was 17 years. And if you're sick of your story and you want to move on, get into reality and realize that you are in the right place and that you're ready to move on to be that wonderful person that you are and to shine.
Yes, and I think too that as we move forward and we find productive ways to alter our lives and we create new meaning and purpose to our lives, that helps us make sense out of the loss. For you and I both, we wouldn't be doing the current work we did had we not experienced the loss, and that's what I call turning lemons into lemonade.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. And it's amazing. Your loved one wants you to be happy.
yes, yes,
I mean, they do. They want you to go on. They want you to be happy. They want you to be productive. And the very first thing that I think that you can do to move forward if you feel like you're stuck is to do something for somebody else. And something small, the smallest thing. Do something for a neighbor. Pick up their paper and put it in their mailbox, or take something, a cookie or a brownie. You would be
yes,
amazed. Just doing one thing for somebody else can be an amazing thing. Making a phone call to
yes,
your mother-in-law that you've had problems with and saying, I
yes,
just wanted to say I love you,
yes.
or I care for you, or I miss you, or or I'm sorry.
Well,
Maybe
Gloria,
that's
I
the
tell
first
you,
thing you can
I,
get up.
I'm looking at the clock, and I knew this hour would pass way too quickly. I appreciate you for being here. I'm going to tell everybody once again, I'm giving away Gloria's book. It's called Open to Hope. It was co-authored by her and her daughter, and they've got some wonderful contributing writers. And you can go to my website, robincraigdirect.com, and the 20th person to email me, you can just say Open to Hope or let me win the book, whatever you want to say. You're going to win this book, and I promise you're going to love it. Gloria, thank you for being here, and I hope that you'll come back again.
I certainly will. And can I say we're going to be in Tucson, Arizona on October 30th at the Widows Conference there. If you want to Google Tucson, Arizona Widows, you will find us, and we'll be there as the keynote speakers.
Absolutely. I know it's going to be great. Thank you so much, and you got to promise to come back.
All right, and I will visit us on opentohope.com.
Absolutely. Have a great evening.
Thanks, Robin.
Bye-bye. So Tucson, Arizona is the place to be. That's where Stanley Bronstein and I are going to be November the 13th through the 17th at Miraval Resort. When you go to my website to win the book, you do not have to be in the chat room to win. Just go to Robin with an I, Craig, like a boy's first name, direct.com. You can click on the banner. You can register for the retreat in November. It's going to be so great. I hope everybody can come, and I hope you'll share the information with your friends, and I'm going to have Stanley on in a couple of weeks. So have a great evening. Join me every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central, right here on Robin Craig Live. And I'm going to hang around in the chat room for a while, so let's chat a little bit more and catch up. Thank you.